only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House with Tony and Sandy. And it is a Sunday morning, and oh my gosh, we were working till the very last minute to get everything set up. So it's great to see all of you this morning. This morning we are live just on YouTube and X. Unfortunately, I had a 3-second clip that was in my show with a show I did before, like a long time ago, comes up as a copyright. And so on Facebook, so Facebook won't let me post on the page till April. And you can't, they won't even tell you what it was. But I figured out what it was, and I made sure I went out and edited all of the any of the YouTubes that use this. It was a 3-second storm thing. So I edited
Wow.
out of the YouTube so that I don't have the same thing. So I won't be on the page, but Jonathan is still doing the page. So anyway, good morning. I just wanted to give you that little tidbit. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Well, it's good for us or for some people, but
No.
we'll talk about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Go for it. I mean, let's get right into it. I'll just say really quickly hello to Kate and Poppy and Barry and Karen and Alex. Thank you for moderating and being here. And Soul Life and Brett's here moderating. Great. Look at that. Yeah, this is good. Okay, let's go. Susan's here. All right. Take it out. Take it away. What are we talking about today, darling? Darling.
So, as many of you, and thank you, Sandy, as many of you already know, Iran has been in the headline here in the United States. On February 28th of this year, our government and the Israeli government had begun horrific acts of terrorism and bombing raids of the Iranian people, including assassinating head members of their regime. Now, this has brought Iran into the headlines, and a lot of what people are learning about Iran is obviously the ongoing crisis, the devastation, what's happening to their leadership, their military commanders. Maybe some people are learning about some of the technology and weapons that are being used and fielded. But in this show, I wanted to,
Yeah.
me and Sandy, to really humanize and create a sense of place
Mm-hmm.
of Iran and the Iranian people, because I think in the midst of war, that is oftentimes lost, that we forget that a part of our human species, our human history, our legacy, our family is destroyed. And so
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about that, recognize and talk about who the Iranians are, um, not only today, but in history. Um, so I did have a very small presentation. Can we screen share? Sandy, did you say we were able to do that?
Well, I suppose if I look at I didn't set it up, but let's see. Um Screen share. Well, you talk while I look
Okay. And
because
I have
I
my,
didn't set it up to do that, and I'm not sure I can today.
okay, okay. Um, Well, the Iranian people, that's the term that we use today to identify Iran, or the people who live in this area of the world, also
Mhm.
known as West Asia and or the Middle East if you're in the
Mhm.
United States.
Mhm.
Iran is right beside Iraq, if
Yep.
you know what the geographic map looks like. Iran is about 3.5 times, almost 4 times the size of Iraq in terms of land area. And also, it's about 3 times the size in terms of, or actually about 4 times the size in terms of population. Um,
I don't know
there
if I
are
can do this. Go ahead.
between there are between 20 um, million people who live in Iraq and 25 million, and there are about 90 million people who live in Iran. So the population is a lot larger, and also it tends to be quite a bit more dense. And
Sorry.
so Iran does have a lot of different geographical features and also a very different history from some of the other countries in the region. Um, yeah, oh, that's perfect. Can you pull up the just pull up this one here? Oh, the third one. Sorry, I'm
This
pointing.
one?
You can't. Yep.
Okay.
So I can at least give
Yeah,
people.
because I'm not really prepared for screen sharing. I didn't click the right stuff and I don't want to wreck it. So, all right. How do we look?
Um. Well, that one's. Can you zoom in? Are you able to zoom in?
I don't know. Yeah, look at that. It's zooming in. Okay. All right. What do we need to look at?
All right. So this is ancient Persia.
Mhm.
Now, notice that we used a different terminology here because the Iranians, and you'll notice that this is a much larger map than modern day Iran. The Persians, during the height of their empire, encompassed all of what we understand to be the Middle East today, including the Levant, which is, as you can see, the entirety of modern day Israel, Egypt into Libya, the entirety of Turkey. Notice that. Armenia is also covered. And so you see, this is a very expansive empire. And at the heart of this empire is where you can see it says in very dark words, Persia.
Mhm.
That is where Iran is today, the Persian Gulf,
Right.
um, at the Arabian Sea and across the way from Saudi Arabia. And of course, the modern countries of the United Arab Emirates and what have you. Um, and this gives you a little bit of insight. And notice that even part of their empire, of course, gets into Greek, into European theaters. So this is one of the empires that rival the Greek empires, the Roman
Yeah.
Empire. Um, for those of you who are biblically minded, Persia is actually is specifically mentioned in the Bible. And in fact, which is very interesting, between the Persians and the Jews. But it is the Persians, the Iranians, who released the Jews from Babylonian exile and who commissioned the Jews to go back to Israel and rebuild Jerusalem and the Second Temple. And what's very interesting, too, about this connection between Jewish history and Iranian history or Persian history is that there's only one person who is non Jewish in the entire Bible who's ever called the Messiah. And that one person is Cyrus, the king of Persia, a
Wow.
Persian.
Now, is
So,
it being that this is one of the oldest continuous civilizations on Earth? This is then, these are real. This is real history. This is not just biblical stuff. This is real
oh
history.
no, I mean, well, straight from the Bible into modern times, right?
Oh,
The
okay.
Persians are Iran is that same civilization. Those are those same
Right.
ethnic peoples that existed even in biblical times and on up into today.
Wow.
So it's interesting these relationships, even going back to Babylon. Of course, it was the Persians who destroyed the Babylonian Empire. And remember, at the time, the Persians, it was the Jews who were destroyed by the Babylonians. Um, and I want to bring this sense of history because today it's easy to look at the relationship between the modern day state of Israel and the Israelis and look at the relationship with the Iranians today, and you see themselves as enemies throughout all of time, history, and memorial. But that's simply not the truth. That's simply not been the history of the relationship between these two peoples. And even so much so, Persia, one of the Persian kings, gets one of the most honorable mentions possible in the Jewish Bible. So that tells you something about their histories and their relationships. Now, if you can bring up, Sandy, a modern picture of Iran.
Yeah. All right. Hang on. We'll go back and look at map of that's Persian. This is all ancient. Now I need to have a
Yeah,
map
just
of Iran. Just a second. Sorry, everybody, but it was a little notchy this morning. Iran, not iron. Iran, a little notchy because, I also got up late because of the time change. How about, I think this is quite nice. What do you think? You like this one? By
okay.
provinces, by size? Security check. Well, I guess that's, oh, okay. All right. Problem is, I don't know if I can make this one bigger. No, it's not. How do you feel about this, everybody? Is it too small? See, we have Caspian Sea and Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, all of the different countries. It might be too small. I don't know. Let me try another one. Forgive me for being this way this morning. Like I said,
I'm gonna attempt something to see if I can do this.
Oh, I got it. Wait. Oh gosh, buy this image. These people are insane. I am so sorry. But you see, actually, can you see? This one looks a little bit bigger. But I'm not buying it. These people are crazy. Let's see if there's anything. Here's Wikipedia. This might be one that we can look at big enough. How's that one?
Okay.
You think that one works?
Well, yeah, that just gives people, I think, yeah, that's fine. So this gives you a general idea of what modern day Iraq looks like
Uh huh.
compared to ancient or classical Persia. Um,
Okay.
so remember, in history, Persia is before the Roman Empire.
Mm hmm.
So in your Western mind, you think about Jesus, the Persian Empire would have occurred several hundred years before Jesus, okay? Um, Now, notice that it's wedged between Afghanistan to the right, Pakistan to, um, I guess it's inverse. So on the left, uh,
Mm hmm.
you have Afghanistan, you have Pakistan, and then to the right, since it's inverse for me, you have Kuwait and Iraq, Turkey, all these other countries. And you'll see this gives you a good context of what the neighborhood looks like. The Caspian Sea to the north, the Persian Gulf to the south, um, the countries that you've heard about that have been attacked, Bahrain, uh, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia are all there, and of course Iraq, where the United States has military bases. Okay, so this just gives you a little bit of situation. So now you know where Iran is. You've heard the joke. If you look at Iran on the map, Americans wouldn't be able to point to it. Now you would have some sort of recognition. It's that country between the Caspian and the Persian Gulf, and you'll be right. Okay.
Right.
Um,
Let's see
so
this one. I'm just trying to see if there's another one that might be even better, but it's very difficult when I didn't set it up. So forgive me, guys. All right, we go back to this one.
yeah, so that's if you wanted to get into those pictures, I hate that wasn't English.
All right. I know, and we really had everybody listen. Yesterday for me was a difficult day. I had a tornado watch, and things happen. So life happens. I'm usually much better prepared. So we could start with a little laugh, Ayatollah Asahola. But as you're talking about the history, I can just show beautiful pictures as
Oh
we go.
yes, perfect.
Yeah,
And we have to remember, and that's part of the tragedy in what's happening in this ongoing war, is that Persian society is an ancient society. It is a very developed society. It's a very advanced society, a very treasured people. And when we look at what's happening today, it's painstaking to know that these people, this civilization, is undergoing so much trauma. And I remember with the wars in Syria, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, ancient statues and hieroglyphic text and carvings, murals, all these things were destroyed in these wars. And so it's a great part of our history and tragedy that such a thing would befall such a beautiful and iconic people such as the Iranians.
right.
You keep on flipping the
I have a question for you. Do you think that when cultural destruction, do you feel like it's almost a genocide in itself? I mean, it's like almost like wanting to erase people's identity and their history and change them. I mean, just all these ethnic cleanses in these countries doing this, they
Well, and
destroy this.
you hear how a lot of Westerners talk about their war with Iran. Do you have like those pictures set on time where they can just like transition as I talk, or
No, I'll just do it.
okay,
Again, this today is not one of those
okay,
Sandra's
no, that's fine. So
professional
these are
days.
beautiful pictures, and it just makes a good background as I'm talking about this.
Keep going.
But one of the big problems, I think, in our language with the Iranians is that, yes, oftentimes we talk about our war with certain countries in the Middle East as being cultural. Samuel Huntington, the liberal professor from Harvard, writing his class of civilizations. Just earlier this week, we are talking about Lizzie Graham, talking about
Oh, Lindsey
Western
Graham.
civilization.
Ugh.
Benjamin Netanyahu talking about he's on the frontier of Western civilization, of Judeo-Christian Western civilization, the term that's oftentimes being used. And so a lot of times when we talk about what's happening, you're right, Sandy, to point that out. It is an attack not just on the people themselves, but on their culture, on their history, on their legacy, on their unique contribution to our human species on this planet. And unfortunately, those narratives oftentimes are quite aside from the real conflicts happening on the ground, right? The Iranian people are not some backwatered, primitive, whatever. They are as complex and as rich in their history and their diversity as Americans are, or the Japanese, or the French, or whomever. And in fact, I wouldn't even compare them to the Americans because, again, this is an ancient civilization. Whereas, this year we're actually celebrating our only 250th birthday, so not
Right.
comparable at all. And what people have to understand that Iranians even believe in a different form of Islam that is most pervasive throughout the world. I was listening to someone the other day said, Antonio, the Iranians have very different values than us. They don't care about life. They just want to hurt themselves and
Does
hurt
this
us.
does this look like that they don't care about life? They're academically excelling in that country.
And that's the thing. In those, they have access to collegiate systems in a way that we don't here in the United States. They have a form of universal health care in Iran. So it's a very different and complex society. And oftentimes when Westerners talk about Iran, they link Iran in with the rest of Islam, or not even really the rest of Islam, but with specific extremist elements of Islam that don't even exist in Shiite Islam. For example, Wahhabism interestingly enough, is a form of Islam that believes in a violent global jihad. And these are actors that oftentimes employ terrorism. And Wahhabi Islam tends to be at the heart of movements like ISIS. Um, but Wahhabi Islam is a part of Sunni Islam. The Sunni and the Shiites have been at war with each other. The Iranians are the minority. The Iranians had to live defensively. The Iranians had to live enclosed. These are not the type of people who want to go out about the world conquering different lands. They did in their ancient history as Persians. They were a completely different religion at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not even the same religion. They were Zoroastrianists and believed in other things. Islam didn't even come about until 500 years after Christianity. And so Persia is a country that's rich in diversity, it's rich in history, it's rich in
Mm-hmm.
people. It has a very developed economy in terms of academics, in terms of industry, in terms of art,
Right.
in terms of movies. Um, the Iranian people have a lot to offer. And oftentimes, what happens is that their leadership is
Right.
oftentimes, that's a beautiful picture of Tehran,
Right.
is taken to be representative of the entire people. But what I would ask Americans to do is refrain from that sort of thinking. Ayatollah
It's
Khomeini
hard.
was a horrible
Mm-hmm.
religious tyrant. Many Iranians would even agree with that. But Ayatollah Khomeini, even his form of Islam, which by the way, he in a religious edict, in a fatwa, said that development of nuclear bombs is anti-Islam, and as long as he was alive, that Iran would never pursue a nuclear weapon. Well, he's dead now,
You
but
know, Tony, it's like Americans can oppose the Iranian regime. They can oppose the policies. They can oppose the military. But do we have to destroy the Persian civilization that produced poets? Poets like Hafez and mathematics and astronomers and architecture and one of the earliest empires. It hurts. It really hurts. I literally haven't been sleeping well because of all this, because I just feel like we are destroying an ancient civilization, and it's not we, it's Israel and the United States,
it's
and
our
then
governments.
yes,
Yeah.
our governments, and then there is the now intra Middle East wars between the other countries because they host a United States military. So it's really making me kind of sick. I mean, like, not be able to sleep. And Iran is so misunderstood. It really, it's just so sad. Well, you
Well,
keep
we
going.
in the West are propagandized, and that's why it's important showing
Terribly.
people these pictures of speaking about the diversity of Iran when it comes to their philosophies, when it comes to their religion, when it comes to their economy, when it comes to their people and their histories.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that we humanize even the people that we're at war with, because the
Yeah.
great majority of Americans don't even support this war. The great majority of Americans are against this war. Some 60, almost 70% of Americans are against this war. And so I think we have to continue to humanize the Iranians. We're getting a sort of language from our administration that really overlooks all of this.
Look at this.
Um,
Mm,
and unfortunately, this is a treasure right now that is under siege.
I hear
And
you.
Iran is home to the birthplace of civilization, Mesopotamia, so even older than the Persian Empire. Um, and it's between these rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. Um, it's these mountain ranges that have created a buffer zone for the Iranians for millennia. That's why they have been able to survive as
Mm-hmm.
a contiguous people for so long.
That's right. And
Um,
they did you know that in Iran they had one of the earliest postal system across thousands of miles, and the terrain is look at, we know what the terrain is by learning about it, and they actually had early sophisticated roads, um and and multicultural, like you said, there was multicultural. Just so much,
Well, and of
so
course,
much.
Iran would be part of the Silk Road, and they're really a sort of switching station between the Europe, Africa, and the Far East.
Yep.
Remember, for a large part of history, that area that we consider the Sinai, parts of Iraq, parts of
Look at
even the
that.
Levant, Jordan, Transjordan, that area was considered northeastern Africa. So think about that kind of being in the same home of Egypt. Um, and so Iran was therefore this, or Persia was this middle area
Mm-hmm.
where there's a huge exchange of ideas, of salts, spices, of textures and textiles that's happening, and it's really linking North Africa to Asia Minor, East Europe to the Far East Asia, to China, to
Okay.
Mongolia. So it's absolutely incredible the history and where Iran is situated today in terms of its geography. And that's also why the Americans have been working so hard to really install a regime that would be friendly to the Americans and their agenda, because they understand the geographical importance strategically for Iran in the world. Also, Iran is a huge exporter of oil, and natural gas comes
Yeah.
from Iran. Um, Absolutely.
I
And that
was
brings us.
Right, right. I was watching a video on the Strait of Hormuz and the ecological and environmental delicacy of the water and the little island itself. It was just amazing, but I can't show it here. It would be a copyright.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, absolutely. And, that tells us a little bit about our history with Iran. Americans, we really don't know our history, but it starts back in 1953, and this is at the end of the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening is that the U.S. military is rapidly developing, and one of its developments is it's moving from coal and oil to mostly oil and gas refinements in terms of energy. And Iran, lo and behold, is a huge place for gas and oil. And so, what the British and the Americans do is actually not too dissimilar, unfortunately, from what's happening today. Is they infiltrate Iran and begin fomenting rebellions and insurgency and civil unrest in Iran, leading to the overthrow of the first democratically elected prime minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh,
Yes.
in 1953 under Operation Ajax. And the reason why Mossadegh is ousted by the Americans and by the British is because of the nationalization of what's called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The word Anglo referring to English. Today, um, that company has evolved into a much more well-known company called BP,
Mm-hmm.
British Petroleum.
There you go.
Um, and these are, that's why it's so beautiful. We're contrasting these pictures with what I'm saying. To think that for us, the treasure of Iran lays beneath the ground, and it's in its people, it's in its geography, it's in its history. Um, And yet, the Western presence is so consumed about the energy beneath the sand, the energy beneath the dirt. Um, so much so that we would overthrow a democratically elected government. I
Yeah.
thought we wanted democracies in the Middle East. I thought we supported democracies being in the Middle East. Well, not if those democracies are interested in using their own resources to develop their own people. And so we actually replaced Mohammed Mossadegh with the Shah.
Yep.
And the Shah was a secular dictator who was not at all interested in the development of the state. Now, in terms of some religious rights, women did certainly see advancement in this category. There's social rights that Iranians certainly did enjoy under the Shah that they did not previously. But still, it is upon a people to make this choice for themselves. And more crucially, the Shah, again, not interested in developing the state, but interested in opening the state up for American extraction and
Absolutely.
Western European
I
extraction.
remember it. I remember it. I remember learning it in school. We did learn things back then that I don't know if the kids learn now.
And so what ends up happening is by 1979, a revolution foments in Iran. And like most revolutions around the world, revolutions are often led by reactionaries and by radicals. And so that's when Ayatollah Khomeini comes into power. So one has to ask themselves, if America would have allowed Iran to naturally, democratically develop as it was, would it not have been a much more prosperous, much more human rights friendly state, and even friendly to America and Israel if they were to allow to govern
Right.
themselves?
Left alone.
Yeah, without American and British intervention. Well, instead, Ayatollah Khomeini comes back, and he largely comes back on a policy of what? Ousting the foreigners who are controlling and governing their country, and that's the Americans, leading to the Iranian hostage crisis affair. Okay? And since obviously that time, the Americans and the Iranians have not had a good relationship internationally. And that relationship only devolved in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, in the Kurdish wars, where the United States was helping Iraq develop chemical weapons against the Iranians. That's a serious violation of international law. And so there's a whole history that comes out of that that brings us to the modern day. And I think it's important for people to reflect on how is it that we have this sort of relationship with the Iranians? And it certainly has to do with the history and the context of that history, and not just what's happening on your telescreens today.
Yeah, exactly. I can't add anything to that. Nope.
Yeah.
Whew. Look at that. Look at what I have on that screen. The mountain, I mean, the country is so diverse and it is so beautiful. And, I had started watching different videos a while back of different countries and that sabbatical Tommy who travels, who's a YouTube traveler, but is different than a lot of the other ones. And I couldn't find the video where I believe he went to Iran and he was just enthralled with the people. It was amazing, but look at this. What a country, and we are now going to ruin it.
Well, and I don't want to scare people. We really don't know what the U.S. and the Israelis are planning, but
I
there have been
know.
reports in southeastern Iran where there could be a potential nuclear bunker that the Americans are trying to destroy.
Insane.
And there's fear that Americans, under the Trump administration, and again, I would not be reporting this if I did not understand this to be at least a potentiality Americans need to be aware of,
Right.
that the president might actually be considering using a tactical nuclear weapon against the Iranians. Um, I,
I'm gonna
I, I would
cry.
hope. I would hope, and that was the problem I've been warning since 2016 when the Obama administration had developed these so-called surgical nukes, that Obama might have a steady hand, but who's the next president to come in after him? Is that person going to have a steady hand? And obviously the next person that gave it after it was Trump, who's had the least steady hand of any president that we've ever had. And
Yeah,
the problem
exactly.
already with a steady hand president is that surgical nuclear weapons are designed specifically in a way that commanders might think that even though they're stronger than conventional yield weapons, they are less strong than traditional nuclear weapons. And so we might be able to get away with using one to achieve a particular tactic in the field or a typical tactical goal in the field. Now, this is extremely problematic because Iran doesn't have tactical nuclear weapons. It doesn't have surgical grade nuclear weapons. So it has to respond conventionally, proportionally to what the Americans do. But it's much worse than that because even though it's a tactical nuke, it still has the problem with international radiation. That is, the radiation spreads across international borders.
Yes. Yes.
And that is actually my hope here is that the Israelis will realize that there's a potentiality. Now, I hope they don't look at the meteorology and see, oh, well, the winds blow this way, so we may not. I hope that the Israelis realize that if the Americans do try to move toward a nuclear option, my God, to do a bunker busting would be ridiculous beyond belief. I mean, to use a nuclear weapon in a war would be ridiculous. But I would hope that the Israelis would understand that they would be threatening their own sovereignty, they would be threatening their own people,
Absolutely.
poisoning them from potential radiation. So I hope, but I just don't know. I just don't know because, I think back about the George W. Bush administration, and they didn't move on Iraq. The Clinton administration before him didn't move on Iraq. The Bush administration before him, the Reagan administration.
Iraq,
Excuse me,
Iran.
Iran. And the Obama administration didn't move on Iran because these governments, these presidents, and I disagree with the whole swath of them on international relations, but these presidents stable hand enough to know that a war with Iran would be absolutely tragic, not only for the American side, but it's for the Iranians themselves, for all the history, all the beauty that we just seen here. And my fear is that the Americans are escalating the bombing. More bombing raids have happened yesterday, and I'm sure into today as well, around Iran. And remember, Tehran is a city, the capital of Iran is a city of 10 million
Million.
people.
10 million
Uh,
people. And they're
so we're
bombing
talking
it.
about we're talking about bombing New York City.
Yep.
Okay, imagine the pictures that, I mean, look how horrified. I was a little boy. I was 8 years old. I just turned 9 years old on 9/11. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember the fear, the horror. I have family that was in New York and in New Jersey. The horror, the fear, the shock, the confusion, the devastation that Americans felt on
I
9/11
know.
when really it was just two towers.
Well,
And
it
it
wasn't
wasn't,
just. I mean, I
well, it
worked,
wasn't just,
I was older. Obviously, I'm older. And I was the HR person. We had research. We had projects that were located on Maiden Lane, not far. We had to move our employees. I had to go down to New York City. We had to find them alternative office buildings because there was no work at home at that time. And
right.
because of the dust, I took all the workers' comp claims for everybody just in case they had dust and injuries after that. It was widespread. It was the two buildings, but it was widespread. It really was. And
Right.
it was
And it wasn't,
traumatic for
it,
me to be working in that atmosphere.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And of course, it wasn't just the trade centers, the Pentagon, the airplane
Yeah.
over Pennsylvania that
Same.
went down. But even with all that was happening in the United States on September 11th, that really does not at all compare to what's happening to Tehran today and what's been
No.
happening Iran over the last 4 or 5 days here with the continued bombing. And, my heart absolutely also goes out to the people in Tel Aviv, in Israel. My heart goes out to the people in Bahrain. My heart goes out to the people in the UAE, in all of the affected areas. I mean, many of these people are just going about their lives. They have no business in international relations. They don't know what's going
No.
on.
I know.
And we have to keep this a human-centered conversation, because oftentimes it's those human lives that that get caught up in this horrible tragedy, like the school that was bombed in Iran, with 165 to 180 schoolgirls age 8 to 12. Age 8 to 12, who lost their lives.
But didn't our esteemed president blame it on Iran? Didn't they try to blame it on Iran?
So at first, because they were just all over the place, first they tried to blame it on Iran. Then they said it was a possible missile that malfunctioned. And then they said that, it was us. We just had the wrong data. We thought it was a military site. So
Yeah,
it's been
the wrong data.
Which, by the way,
outdated maps.
Talking about the destruction of civilization, the Israelis have destroyed 778 schools in Gaza. Mm-hmm. So the idea that, this Iranian school was accidentally bombed.
Bullshit.
So it is, I think you are right, Sandy, a question of survival. If the Americans, how far are these people willing to go? We watched in Gaza a genocide that was 4K streamed to us straight to our living rooms through our cell phones.
Yep.
And are we watching now with the bombing of already 9 hospitals, the bombing of residential blocks, high-rise residential blocks in a hyper-urbanized area? Are we watching the Gazification of Tehran today? What will Iran look like? And our president, saying, this is going to take a few days. Then he says a few weeks. Now he's saying September. As the bombing mission continues on, what is Tehran going to look like when this campaign is done?
This is where I'm losing sleep. I mean, really losing sleep. Last night I had the worst night's sleep. I keep dreaming about these people. I keep dreaming about the beauty and all of it. And now I do have a little video clip I don't think would be about Lebanon. It's going there now. Israel's going there.
Well, the Israelis are bombing in Lebanon.
Should I try to play it?
Or you can.
Well, I can play it. I think I can play it. I don't think it would be a. Hang on, let me get it up there.
Listen, Jeffrey Sachs is on the record now. We are very well slow walking into a World War III. Wherever our humanity is right now, that's under attack. I mean, we can give time to it.
All right, hang on. Let me pull.
Israel has carried out more strikes targeting Hezbollah in Beirut's southern suburbs. The army had issued an immediate evacuation order for residents in the area. Israeli forces have also launched a series of airstrikes into southern Lebanon. Earlier, Israel had ordered tens of thousands of residents in dozens of villages there to leave. Hezbollah struck Israel in response to the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Saturday. And let's go to Heidi Pett, who's monitoring the situation. So, Heidi, it looks like there is dark smoke rising from one of those neighborhoods. From your vantage point, is that a new strike or something else that we're seeing there?
So the dark smoke that's been rising this morning over Beirut is actually further towards the north in downtown, and we've spoken to civil defense this morning. They say that's actually just a regular fire in Dakwana, but obviously, the level of nervousness about plumes of smoke over the city is very high at the moment, and you can probably see just behind me, there is a little bit of smoke still hanging over the southern suburbs, which are in the background here, which did see a number of strikes overnight by the Israeli military. There were at least 4. Now, some of those were targeting buildings that were the subject of forced evacuation orders by the Israeli military, but a number of them came with no warning at all. And these have not been the only strikes overnight here in Lebanon. There were a number of strikes across the south, including a village near the city of Sur. And unusually, we saw a strike in the far north of Lebanon in its second largest city, Tripoli, targeting a Palestinian refugee camp it's a long-standing refugee camp, been there for decades. Local sources inside that camp told us that a Hamas official and his wife were killed. Lebanese health authorities have confirmed that 2 people were killed and 1 person was injured in that strike, which very much does look like it was a targeted assassination. It came with no warning and destroyed just 1 apartment on 1 floor of the apartment building in that refugee camp in Tripoli.
Okay, so we're watching these strikes happening across the country from the air. There are also Israeli boots on the ground in southern Lebanon, in some cases several kilometers inside of the border. And yesterday, the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, called on the United States to intervene to try to stop this assault from the Israelis. Are there any indications at all at this stage that the U.S. is likely to heed those calls and do something to try to pump the brakes on this?
I mean, nothing here on the ground that would confirm that the US is putting pressure on the Israelis to cease these ground invasions or this incursion into southern Lebanon. We do understand, yes, that the Israelis have further advanced. So since the ceasefire in November of 2024, the Israelis actually continued to hold 5 positions inside Lebanon in contravention of that agreement. But we know that in the last 24 hours, they have further advanced into several locations. Hezbollah has issued a number of statements this morning saying that they had directly engaged Israeli troops on the ground. They're saying that they confirmed casualties. We haven't had confirmation of that from the Israeli side just yet. But the question here in Lebanon is, what role will the Lebanese army actually play? Yesterday, they withdrew from a number of positions. They said that, they're not withdrawing from the south. They wanted to make that very clear. They were just repositioning some troops for safety. They've been moving a few things around. But the Lebanese army themselves has admitted that they have limited capacity to counter Israel. And that is the sort of raison d'etre of Hezbollah, which is one of the armed factions in the Lebanese civil war. And it was the only one that was allowed to maintain its weapons at the end of that war. And that was for the exact objective of countering Israel. And so we're now seeing this tension between the Lebanese government, the Lebanese state, and its prime minister, who has outlawed the military and security activities of Hezbollah. A number of people were arrested yesterday for trying to take weapons down towards the south. And so the question remains exactly whether there'll be a confrontation or further tension between the Lebanese government and Hezbollah.
All right, Heidi Petforest there in Beirut. Please keep us posted.
I thought that was a good one to show because it's just illustrative of the mess everywhere in the Middle East now.
And let's not forget in Lebanon that the Israelis had struck a United Nations peacekeeping camp, injuring 3 and severely injuring 2 others, so much so they had to be flown out to a hospital in Beirut. So Israel has decided to be an international pariah, that Israel no longer wants to be a part of the international system and has demonstrated in every respect that it doesn't care for international laws, norms, or the international consensus when it comes to its policy.
I did make a video on my political coffee house about a gentleman named Yair Golan, who is the left wing in the party, the Democrat Party in the left wing Knesset. There are elections coming up in October. Netanyahu is not favored to win, possibly, but there's another sort of right-wing billionaire kind of guy that people in Israel like. I don't know why, but I would like everybody, if you can, to go over and look at the 20-minute video I put together. I had done it Thursday as a whole show on our channel here, but I cut it down to 20 minutes, and it's important. His name is Yair Golan, and it's very interesting what's happening because I've been now studying what's the political situation in Israel, looking at what people I know that live there are talking about. Even the right wingers don't want Netanyahu, so who knows? Who really knows?
Well, and there's a lot of problems with Benjamin Netanyahu domestically in Israel, The problem is that he's a wartime president, and the coalition in Israel, although they don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, many people find that he's corrupt. And in fact, I
Oh,
mean, he does
he
have corruption
is.
charges. He had corruption charges before the court, and this war has been a method in postponing all of that. And the more he's able to expand the war, he's able to expand his powers during the wartime. And I think that's a similar play that we're going to see with President Trump here in the United States, particularly as we get closer to the midterm elections.
Yep.
Remember, these are not, the United States and Israel are now illiberal countries. They are not part of the international consensus of democracies. These countries act extremely irrational. I mean, just a month ago, we were talking about committing terrorist attacks on the Canadians and invading Canada. We're talking about committing terrorist attacks against Greenlanders and invading Greenland. Norway, France, Germany, the Italians had to dispatch troops ready to stay on guard against the Americans.
Crazy.
So this is a very interesting time in international history right now. And even right now, the Europeans, they are very slow. Some of them are very questionably going along with this and are unfortunately being pulled into the war because of the United States and Israel. But even the Spanish premier has come out and condemned this. And we're going to lend our bases and we're not going to be a part of this assault. And look at what Trump has done in response. Now he's threatening a tariff regime against
I know. Now, Tony, I wanted to sort of change a little bit up before, because I know we have a time, and I wanted to talk about the fact that oil built the Persian Gulf, right? But desalinated water keeps it alive, and there's bombing. Now, I could pull this article up if you'd like me to.
Please.
I mean, I will. It's a good article. Let me pull this up. I mean, it's mainstream, but can you see it? I think it's up.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Associated Press.
So
here.
it's AP, but it's interesting because, it's an environmental aspect of what's happening for the people, but this is for the people. And the article was talking about curtailing energy production, but then here's another mess. Bahrain accused Iran of damaging one of its desalination plants, and earlier Iran said a U.S. strike had damaged an Iranian plant.
Well, because we talked about the water wars in the United States.
Yep.
The water wars are, in fact, global. And we are seeing that water, when I was growing up, people used to say things like, there will be a time where water will be the next oil war. Kamala Harris admitted that in her run-up to the last presidential election. During her vice presidency, that these are the new wars of the future and they are coming home. And we're seeing that water infrastructure, not only in the Gaza Strip, not only in Iran, not only across these countries, is being purposely targeted in military operations. Just as oil facilities are also being targeted in military operations. Why? Because just as stated in that article, we'll keep it there for a second. If you scroll back up, just as stated there in the article, look at Kuwait. Some 90% of all the water that Kuwaitis drink comes from desalination plants. Okay, that's incredible. 86% for Oman. 70% for the Saudi Arabians. That is to say, if their water infrastructure, if these desalination plants were struck today, the whole of their populations would be cast into unquenchable thirst within a week. I mean, that's the sort of crisis. You will die without water in 3 days. And these are extremely, Arab countries, right? These are desert countries. With some of the hottest daytime temperatures on Earth.
Yes.
Okay, and so water is an absolute. And by the way, they waste a lot of water on green golf course and stuff like. But that's whatever.
And some of them.
All of that.
I don't know about Iran, but I know the other ones that are
No,
associated.
not Iran. I'm talking about the golf.
Oh yeah, because they're associated with our orange one.
Yeah, and so these countries are hyper vulnerable to changes in the international order. That's why now the Strait of Hormuz, this is absolutely incredible that Americans are now guaranteeing military escort of oil vessels through. And it's why, because these are choke points Water's a choke point. Oil's a choke point. And by the way, it's an immensely, I mean, this is what population overshoot looks like, right? You
Yeah.
have millions of people living in the Gulf states that otherwise would not be able to live there if it wasn't for the development of these type of technologies, which, by the way, are absolutely horrendous in terms of the ecology and the environment. All the brine material that's created by these desalination plants is absolutely incredible. But nonetheless, this is a lifeline for the GCC countries, and Iran knows that. And so as this war carries on, remember, the Iranians are saying that the vast majority of their missile stockpiles have not been deployed. And also, very few of their most sophisticated missile stockpiles have been deployed. They would be, and we've now seen that they've been able to strike American bases, strike American radar bases. So this shows that they have the capability, if they want to target these civil infrastructures, such as the desalination plants, they could certainly do so and take them offline. And
Yeah.
we will be undergoing an epic crisis, like from the which we've never seen. We've never seen a crisis where literally hundreds, tens of millions of people overnight will lose the ability to water instantly.
And this
We
is it is such a crime. It is such a crime. Where's the rest of the world on this?
We're and that is, oh gosh, Sandy, that's such a beautiful point. We were, after the Second World War, after the Holocaust, after the tragedy of over 100 million people worldwide being lost after the Second World War, we came together as a species to recognize the necessity of multilateralism, the necessity of having international courts, the necessity of having international bodies where we would adjudicate these matters together as one species, as one humanity. And where is the international community on Gaza? Where is the international community on the Iranians? Where's the international community now condemning the Americans that during international negotiations, the Americans would walk away with the Israelis, and then all the time using these negotiations to stall for their bombing race, just as they did in the last negotiations in 2025. And look at what the Chinese have done in response. The Chinese are saying now they will have no strategic negotiations with the Americans until they develop their nuclear arsenal to over 1,000 nuclear warheads. Right now, they've moved from 400 nuclear warheads to 600 nuclear warheads, and they will not be meeting with the Americans until they reach over 1,000 nuclear warheads. So this is the direction that the Americans and the Israelis is bringing the world. And we're out of time. The United States right now is defunding the United Nations. The United States is refusing to pay its dues to the United Nations, and the United Nations is on the verge of financial collapse in major of its organs. So we are looking at the dissolution of the post-war order in our own time by the country that actually created our post-war order, the United States.
There you go. And I guess geopolitically, these Putin and Xi and Trump, they want these spheres of influence. That's why they made up this new thing for Christy Nome, this new, I guess I forgot what it was called, but because the North and South America and then Asia, and it's just incredible how the
And guys,
forces.
this plays straight into what the climate scenarios were in the age of consequences. That as the climate crisis continues, internationalism would essentially devolve into hyper nationalism, where you have these hyper nationalized regions, basically ran by the United States in one quarter, Europe, Russia, and then China.
Yep.
And then India would have to fight it out, but whatever it may be. And look at what's happening with the Pakistanis and the Indians. But we're also dealing with this is the worst possible. We want an international community where we are coming together, making more nuclear treaties, not less. We want an international community where we are disarming, not arming. We want an international community where we are not settling international disputes through leveling Gaza, leveling capitals like Tehran, where we're not blowing up crucial water infrastructure. We are losing all of this in real time. And Americans have to wake up and they have to demand a political response to go in the exact opposite way. It is now necessary that when the Democrats come in power, that we're talking about an immediate arrest the entirety of the Trump administration and brought before our international courts. That is a way that we strengthen the international system and issue to the world a return to internationalism, not tripolarity, where we are building this web of satellite nuclear armed states that are just raping and destroying and pillaging old people who aren't superpowers.
Yeah.
That's the world that we're moving to. We need to move to a world where we're standing behind international courts, standing behind international law, making sure that people like Benjamin Netanyahu is arrested if he returns back to the United States, and renegotiating with the Iranians a nuclear deal and a peace treaty with them. This is absolutely ridiculous that this is going on. It's gotten this far, and it's only set to escalate from here. There is no sign of slowing down. Even now, the American administration talking about troops on the ground. And what's going to happen? The Iranians, as we've talked about already, have been here since time immemorial. They have defended their homeland to the very end, and they will continue to do so. And all of that will mean is that a bunch of Americans are going to come home in a bunch of flag draped coffins, and then we're going to ramp up our bombing campaigns of their cities. So this is where we are now. The Chinese and the Russians are also militarily backing the Iranians, so they're not going to run out of weapon supplies. And this is a very serious and hot-end topic here, and people need to realize how serious this moment is in our history, as we move to a situation that really may be irretractable. We may find ourselves in an irretractable situation, in a global war.
And along with that comes overshoot and the heating environment, that the global heating that Nick and I were talking about, and the storms and things like that happened to me with a tornado warning yesterday in March in Western New York. We are in a polycrisis situation.
Yeah.
And, I hate to be there, but I don't know what we can talk about right now that'll make it so much better, because it feels like hopium. Yet, we can, the thing we or us or humanity or Americans or whatever you want to preface it as, locally, that's all you can do is locally.
Yeah. Demand action.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm calling for. I am demanding action on the part of my American friends, family, and countrymen to get involved, demand a change in the opposite direction on the question of Iran, demand an opposite direction on the question of Gaza, demand that we bring the Trump administration before our international courts, demand that if Benjamin Netanyahu comes back to the United States, that he be arrested. What we have to do is demand that there actually be law and order reinstated in the system. Trump is a completely lawless administration. He's a completely lawless president. Benjamin Netanyahu is completely lawless. And that's not to say that Ayatollah Khomeini wasn't a murderous titan. He was. But the way that we deal with that is through international law, not through this gun-ho tactic of bombing ancient peoples, ancient civilizations, populations of 10 million, and threatening to throw the world into complete disunity.
Which has happened. And because of people like him.
The only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
What a fucking piece
And
of
this
shit.
that's peak Hegseth. Is the moment that we're in is so serious, ladies and gentlemen. I told you these people, and it's hard for me to keep my composure. These, the things that we have heard about this being a religious war, a civilizational war, that language from peak Hegseth, the only people that worry Iranians think they're going to live. This is the sort of language that enables genocides, that enabled the Holocaust of the last century. This is where we lose our humanity. And that's why it was so important in this show that we try to humanize the Iranians, who they are as a people, how unique they are, how special they are to our species, to our own history as humans, to the way that we think about ourselves here on this planet and their beautiful country.
Absolutely.
And we cannot forget that. So when you hear people like Peak Hegseth, he is an enemy to our humanity. He is not.
Humanity.
He is not interested in that project, and he's one of the people that will need to be arrested and stand trials for his war crimes here. Um, and that's what we need to stand behind. Is we need to stand behind international principles. We need to stand behind human solidarity. Okay, so we can say that Ayatollah Khamenei should have been held before the international courts and prosecuted, and we can also say that about Hegseth, Donald Trump, Ben Gvir, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the host of these international thugs that are now running rampant, and including Putin himself for his crimes in Ukraine.
Yep.
You know, we can absolutely, if we stand together, hold these people, these countries accountable for their actions.
I hope so. And I mean, I say it sounds like hopium. However, there are a lot of people out there fighting, even locally, like me. I'm doing the littlest thing. After this, I'm going out to get a petition signed for a person running for Congress against our congressman here, who is a MAGA ass-licking toady. So it's little things. I mean, I'm very busy all the time, and I said I would do it because I feel like I need to do things to do that. And you have to write to your Congress and your Senate.
Yeah.
You know, people like, we have to get rid of people like Schumer. And I hate to use we, but the citizens have to vote these idiots out like Schumer, who probably hasn't ever voted not to fund Israel and doesn't, how does he not see this is so awful? But then, you know, you go on X, which I've been on X on my other channel. I have been trolling Laura Loomer really bad. And the people like that, because there's another thing I've noticed. These people all over social media have made, and this is for a whole other show, have actually made anti-Semitism worse. They've made it worse since Trump, and this was what Yair Golan was saying. He said it in 2016. He's been silenced by Israel because he saw this coming. He saw it. He nailed it, and here we are.
Here we are, because and I'm a Jewish person. I'm wearing my kippah right now, and I do that to say, just like there's a diversity of views in Iran, there's a diversity of views amongst the Jews, and I completely condemn the Israeli administration. I completely condemn Benjamin Netanyahu. I completely condemn his war cabinet. And I believe that the entirety of the Israeli government political system that's involved in this operation ought to be brought before our courts. And that's why I continue to say that if Benjamin Netanyahu is in this country, that it should be the policy of this administration to arrest him immediately when he lands on American territory. And that should be the policy across all countries, all member state countries, that we have an ICC arrest warrant out for Benjamin Netanyahu, and the ICC needs to be much more aggressive and expand that arrest warrant to the President of the United States as well. And that's what we have to do. We have to, again, stand behind multilateralism. We have to stand behind international law, and we have to stand behind these international institutions to make sure that the balance of power is not with the Americans, not with the Israelis, and not through might, but through law, through the equality of law.
And there are a lot of people that are with you. A lot of people that are with you. So there we go.
And on the American side, you're absolutely right. You know, we just had elections here in North Carolina. Texas also had their election. And, Roy Cooper, my former governor, will be going to the general elections. And I do have concern. He's a very moderate Democrat, a sort of Melissa Slotkin type. And Melissa Slotkin, a moderate Democrat, wanted to sanction the court for prosecuting war criminals.
Ugh, gosh.
So we're at a level in the United States that our society has in large part gone deranged. And for those of us who are conscious of this, it is upon us to bring us back to the fold, to bring the rest of us back in, and to really reel in the worst of our inclinations, of our tendencies here.
Chaz says you're delusional. Who has to do this, or who has to do this? Who? The world? Who? I don't know, Chaz. I mean, yeah, it seems like it's insurmountable. It seems like it's insurmountable. That's why it's baby steps. That's why it's just little things that you could do, like pass a petition, call your congressperson,
What do you have
call
to
your
do? Well,
senator.
yeah. What are we asking people to do? I'm not
Not
asking
much.
for you to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. You will be arrested if you try to do. Actually, you'll probably get killed. So don't do that. What I'm asking for you to do is to vote for people who understand that. What I'm asking for you to do is to have the conversation with your neighbor. What I'm asking for you to do is what Sandy's talking about: getting on the phone and calling your representative, sending out a letter. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And those are all things that we can
Simple
do.
little things, I guess. That's
Participating in
it.
protest, signing those petitions. That's what we have to do. We have to always be a force for good, no matter how deranged the
There
outset
you
might.
go. And that's it. Our little family here, spread the message, keep going. No matter how awful it feels, because it sure felt bad to do the research and starting to learn much more about Iran than I'd had. And I started this when they bombed.
Excuse me.
Good tight. I started this when they started the bombing in June. I mean, I knew it was a diverse country. I understood that. I'm not a, I do enjoy learning all of these different things. That's why I'm on the learning about Israel and the Knesset and their people and the voting and how they look. They preface it, and knowing Israelis that I know personally and seeing what they're writing and how they're thinking and how propagandized they are. Well, anyway, I know that you have not much time, so I do want to thank Foggy for the super chat. Thank you, my friend. And by the way, Chaz is really cool. He's just playing devil's advocate
No,
here.
and I'm not. No, it's a good question. I'm not yelling at him. At first, I was going to make a joke. He said capital H, capital or capital W, capital H, capital O. It's like the World Health Organization. They say we're gonna
No,
do-
but Lindsey Graham is the senator. Is that who's going to do this? Now, we see what Lindsey's doing. Lindsey is doing things that aren't even sanctioned by the president. He's meeting with world leaders. He's a treason. It's treason.
Like I said, we are in a moment of lawlessness right now. But Lindsey Graham is a sociopathic maniac.
Gosh.
His beliefs are completely cultish.
Yep.
And I don't know what's wrong with the people. To the people of South Carolina, I'm talking to you. Get him out of your politics.
The people of the United States, get them all out. Pennsylvania, get rid of Fetterman, please.
Yes.
Get rid of all these people. Okay, let's look at just a couple of comments, and I know you've got to go and I've got to go. Let's see. Hi, Per. Hi from. Oh, you're in. He's over in. I think. Are you in Sweden? Oh my God! Please don't get mad at me. I was in the USAF. 1977-78 in Tehran. I was working with General. Where is it? Oh shit! Here it is. I was working with generals. There were more than 50,000 American military there, most of them from Vietnam. Oh, so you have experience going way back. Wow, 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 with all this. As the Gulf conflict widens, so does its environmental footprint.
Oh,
Yep.
sure,
And
sure.
and thank you, Brett. That's in Nature. I can't open it up from this actual thing, but that's in Nature magazine, and that's what I wanted to bring up with the desalination plants. And I also have a video called "The Environmental Damage of War," and it's up on. I redid it for Political Coffee House. Totally.
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, when you have bombing rates like this hitting critical infrastructure, I mean, our industrial civilization is already dirty, but when it's being bombed and then burning, it's a lot dirtier. So yeah, expect that there's going to be oil leaks into critical water supplies and ecologies. Expect that industrial chemicals are going to get into the air and into the water and into the ground, and a whole host of different bad things are going to happen as we begin bombing part of our civilization.
Right. As if we can afford any additional assaults on the environment. I know, Emerald View. Exactly.
No, and Sandy's right. He was just going through tornado. I'm here in North Carolina. I know a lot of people aren't from the South. It's supposed to be at most like 60, 65. Not even, no. It's still winter. The high time temperature is between like 50 and 55 degrees supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we're doing like 82, 83.
It's crazy.
And, so it's happening.
It is happening. That's what I said to my family yesterday when I was going downstairs, making sure my helmet and my boots and goggles and all that crap in the corner I have with my stuff. My weather here is, it was 68 yesterday, and it's going up to 63 tomorrow. Then it's 65, 65. Then Thursday it goes back to 48, and then Friday we have snow. Saturday and Sunday,
Wow.
I mean, it goes to 32, snow. It's weather whiplash for sure. So on top of all the other things, we've got to also keep ourselves safe. I think of Poppy out there in the Midwest. I think of Scott. All of you that live in different places in our country, I think of all of you because it's a small channel and I have that ability to love you and think of you, even if I don't know you. Personally, I haven't been able to hug you, but I do. I think of all of you. And, at that, I know Antonio has to go. So, we'll probably have to just curtail. I have one more soul life. I once saw a really old Texas woman who seemed very nice who said Ted Cruz was a gift from heaven. These people don't vote on facts. That's a huge problem in this country. And the evangelicals and the Christian nationalists, white nationalists are another whole deal. So, Tony, we will have no dearth of shows to do topics on, and hopefully we can do one on Political Coffee House. Mm-hmm.
There is a connection between climate denial and evangelical Christian Zionism. So the connection there is the end of the world, their eschatology. So they don't believe. So the same people who believe that we got to get all the Jews in Israel so that Jesus will come are the same people who don't think we should do anything about climate because Jesus is going to come. So these things are connected.
Wow.
And we have to take them on.
And here we are. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. You have a wonderful day. I have my day too to get outside, and I'm a little overwhelmed at everything that I'm looking at outside, inside. I take it on a lot of things, but a lot of us are like me. Sometimes we keep ourselves so busy that we can't think straight, or we can't let some of the stuff that's happening get us so depressed that we can't move or sleep.
Right.
Which is happening. And so I will hopefully bring Carolyn Baker back on for a little spiritual uplift because we need it. We definitely need it. And she is definitely the elder in our community. And she's working on another PhD.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's a lot older than I am. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Antonio. I love you. This was a great show. And even if I wasn't set up like usual, hey, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it.
Well, thank
all right,
you.
guys.
I love you too, Sandy. I love this group. Thank you guys for having me. And keep your prayers, your thoughts, your wishes, the best of your humanity focused.
Right. And don't forget, Temple Podcast. That's Tony's channel on all kinds of, diametrically different from what we talk about here. So there you go. All right. Love you. And I will see you guys. I'll be making videos on a Political Coffee House. I don't know when I'll be live exactly. I haven't even thought of my whole thing yet. This Space TV, subscribe to Political Coffee House, all of the above. All right. Goodbye, guys.